crew coming at you. We're doing the shortstop Hall of Fame tier list. I'm Deej. This is my brother Smokey. How are you, my guy?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. All right, let's dig in. First shortstop is Luis Aparicio. So Luis is Venezuelan. I believe he's the first Venezuelan on the Hall of Fame. Maybe the only one. I'd have to check on that. So Luis was a glove first guy, 9 Gold Gloves. He did win the Rookie of the Year, 13 All Star games. He wasn't an especially good hitter, but he was, he was speedy. Oh wow, he led in stolen bases like his first 10 years or so. That's pretty cool. Got 2,700 hits almost. 260 hitter with zero power. He hit 10 home runs once. 82 OPS plus. 56 WAR, tons of Gold Gloves. Does does Aparicio remind you of a certain 1990s Cleveland Indian, Smokey?
Omar Vizquel.
Very, very similar players, like virtually identical skill sets, like big time base stealers. He stole 500. Not a awful hitter, certainly an all right contact hitter. I mean, he didn't strike out much or anything. Just hit for weak contact. He's kind of a small guy. So, this is one of those great field no. Well, he's not even a no hit shortstop. Got 2,600 hits. He stole bases. He hit 260. That's not good or anything, but it's certainly not awful. There's guys that don't even hit 200 these days. So, the 311 on base is below average, but not awful. I don't know. I mean, to me, a guy like Aparicio, who's in for his glove, he's kind of like a D tier to me. Like, certainly below average, but shortstop is, in my opinion, the hardest position to play. You gotta be able to field. You gotta be able to throw. You gotta have good hands. You gotta have range. Your brain is always going. You have to think about every scenario, like what you're gonna do at all times. I think like you just gotta have like your smartest best athlete there. So a guy that can excel at shortstop and be an all right hitter, not a good hitter, of course, is definitely a Hall of Famer. But I don't know if I can rank him much higher than D. What do you think of Aparicio?
Yeah, I'm not really impressed with his hitting. That's kind of a low on base percentage for a Hall of Famer. He did steal some bases. He did lead the league in steals, so that's nice. But yeah, D feels right.
Yeah, he's just kind of a small, scrappy guy that just got the most out of what God gave him. All right. Next up, we got Luke Appling. So Luke Appling he was the White Sox shortstop, I believe. Yes, a lifer White Sox, which is pretty cool. So he played in the 30s and 40s. He missed a year to World War II. Got 2,000, 2,700, 500, 2,750 hits roughly, and he missed a year in the military, or almost 2 years. He only played 18 games the next year. So he might have been a 3,000 hit guy if not for World War II. I mean, that was, he missed almost 2 full seasons and he was 250 hits away. So you can basically mentally make this guy a 3,000 hit guy just in terms of, like what probably would have happened without World War II. Got 77 WAR. Missed. At that point in his career, he was getting 6, 7 WAR. So you can maybe put him up into the 80s, well into the 80s. With that missed time. So effectively a 3,000 hit, 80 WAR guy. 310 hitter, 399 on base. Wow, 113 from a shortstop. Got two batting titles, 7-time All Star. What do you hit for power? No power, only 45 career dingers. But yeah, this guy is a much better hitter than Aparicio. This guy is pretty good. You don't hear much about him, but man, effectively an 80 WAR guy who just was a wizard at getting base hits, and I didn't really steal. He had some decent steal seasons, but yeah, only less than 200. Yeah, not much of a base stealer. I think I can see Appling as a C tier, like solid average Hall of Famer. What do you think about Luke Appling?
I I think he's higher. I think
Higher?
he's a B tier. I mean,
B.
yeah, he first time for the war, and he
Yeah.
had a probably would have had an 80 war. Um, and probably would have had 3,000 hits. Uh, that's pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we usually put those guys in B, like if there's something extra special about them, we push them up to A. But I think he's more of a B.
Yeah, I can buy that. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of unimpressive hitters at shortstop who deserve more respect. So okay, I can definitely buy Appling as a B. All right, next up we got Dave Bancroft. Bancroft is one of those guys I don't really know much about. He was the Philly and Dodgers shortstop in the teens and 20s. 2,000 hits, sub 100 OPS plus. What he's doing on field? Yeah, pretty good fielder. Had well above average. Let's look at his WAR. Cracked 6 3 times, but only cracked 5 4 times. 50 career WAR. No accolades. Man, this guy he's real fringy. I'm not really sure what there is about this guy that makes him a Hall of Famer. Let's take a look at his plaque and see if there's any clues there. All right. So he set the record for chances handled by a shortstop, which isn't even really him, really. That's just he got lucky that his pitchers allowed a lot of ground balls. So he had a lot of putouts, but again, he had the most chances. Okay, so they like his batting average, and they think he was a good shortstop, but like I'm not impressed by getting the most chances. So, man, this guy's an E or an F. What do you think of Bancroft?
Yeah, maybe an E. Not quite a kick him out of there. We had those 300 hitting seasons, and he was a player manager, so that's got to count for something. I'd give him an E.
All right, yeah,
not enough.
That's fair. And we gotta be a little gentle with the shortstops who weren't terrific hitters. So, all right, I can buy him as an E. I wouldn't kick him out, but he's about as low quality a Hall of Famer as there is. All right, next up we got Ernie Banks. So Ernie Banks, I believe he was the first shortstop to hit 500 homers. 68 WAR. Played every game for a long time. Wow, he had 910 WAR. He had back-to-back MVPs there in 58 and 59. Only knock on him is that he wasn't a shortstop his whole career. He moved over to first base in 62 when he was 31. So he did spend the second half of his career at first base. He's got those 2 MVPs, 14 All-Stars. He got a Gold Glove. You know what I say about guys that win a Gold Glove. They probably didn't really deserve a Gold Glove, but they got one just because it felt like he should have gotten one at some point. So yeah, it looks like he was a plus shortstop, and then he just kind of lost his fastball, so to speak, and moved over to first. So I don't know if he had injuries or whatever, but 500 homers as a shortstop is unbelievable. 122 OPS plus. That's about as good as it gets. I don't think I can quite put Ernie Banks as S tier, but he's an obvious A tier Hall of Famer to me. What do you think about Ernie?
Yeah, I think he could go A or B. I don't know why that WAR is low. It looks like he really tailed off at the end of his career.
Yeah, it is a little lower than I would have thought from his reputation. But man, look, he had such a great peak though, like 10 WAR, 2 MVPs. I don't know. I'm comfortable with him at A tier. I think he's definitely one of the all-time greats.
Okay, let's go with that.
All right, next up is our guy Lou Boudreau, the longtime Cleveland Indian. So Boudreau, he was a player manager. I believe he was I think he was the player manager when the Indians won their last World Series in '48. Let's take a quick look at that. Yeah. So look at this. He was the player manager he was a player manager since he was 24. He must have been really highly respected to be manager at 24. So yeah, he managed the Indians. Yeah, he managed the Indians for about 9 years. He got them their last ring in 1948, which always pains me to say, but that's amazing. And as a player, he had 63 WAR. Hit good doubles guy. Cracked 8 WAR 3 times, 7, almost 6. So he had a shorter career. It looks like he only got about he only played 15 seasons and maybe only about 10 full seasons. But yeah, he's got the MVP, got that batting title, the World Series. Let's see what kind of fielder he was. Yeah, excellent fielder. I don't think I can quite put Lou Boudreau as an A tier Hall of Famer because he doesn't really have the name recognition, but he's a pretty strong B, I think. Certainly like an all-time inner ring Cleveland team Hall of Famer. Got his number retired, all that. What do you think of Boudreau?
I think he actually, I think he'd A tier. You got to add that, that managerial resume on there and bump him up. Winning the World Series as a manager, I think that's impressive in addition to his career.
Yeah, he's definitely means a whole lot to the Cleveland franchise. All right, you know what? It's our video. We're going to put our guy at A tier. What are you going to do about it, viewer? All right, next up we got Joe Cronin. So Joe Cronin was of the Red Sox and Senators shortstop in the 30s and 40s. So 65 WAR, 2,300 hits, 300 hitter, 390 on base, 119 OPS plus. That is excellent. Can't say I know much about him off the top of my head. He doesn't have much star power persisting throughout history, but yeah, good doubles hitter. Hit 50 doubles, 45 doubles. Certainly a excellent hitter, no doubt about that. And he had decent pop for a shortstop. 170 homers back then. Hit 24 once. That was pretty good. Cracked 6 WAR 5 times. Average fielder. Yeah, he feels about like a C tier to me. What do you think of Joe Cronin?
Yeah, I'm okay with a C tier. He's not worth banging the table in either direction.
Yeah, I will say his numbers make him look a lot better than my impression of him. If before this video, if you asked me what I thought of Cronin, he might have felt more like a D or E, but he was a very good hitter, so I think C feels about right. Next up is George Davis. Man, this is another guy I barely know he exists other than I've just seen his name as a Hall of Famer. 85 WAR. So he was on the New York Giants and White Sox turn of the century. 2,700 hits almost. 121 OPS plus. Had an RBI crown. Let's see. Field. Yeah, Ward had him as a really, really good fielder. Hit 4 times on almost a fifth. Yeah, I barely heard of this guy, but he has really good numbers. But he has no star power. I'm kind of feeling C tier on George Davis. What do you think about George?
I just can't put anyone with an 80 WAR in a C tier. I think he should be a B tier.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious he had very good fielding abilities, and that kind of bumped him up. So I think the whole package probably puts him at a B.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's just that, never heard of the guy. Maybe he should be more famous. Maybe that's an us problem and not a him problem. All right, next up we got Martin Dihigo. He was a Negro Leaguer out of Cuba. I definitely remember Dihigo as one of the all-time inner ring greats. He went in 77, as we've talked about. The Negro Leaguers that got in the 70s are among the all-time greats. Look at his numbers. He had a phenomenal season in 26. Did he? No MVPs. Let's take a look at his plaque. See what they have to say about him. At least on there as a pitcher. That's weird. But he's on Baseball Reference as a shortstop. Most versatile Negro League star. Played in both Negro Leagues, I guess. 260 wins as a pitcher. When not on the mound, he played outfield or infield, hitting 300. Also managed. I don't know. He kind of sounds like the Negro League Shohei Ohtani, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. I don't know if he's either S or A, I would say. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, 260 wins and then still being a really good hitter. I, my only issue is, he's not mentioned, from what I've heard, in the same breath as Josh Gibson, who's kind of an S tier Negro leaguer. So I'm gonna say A.
Yeah, A feels about right. Like you've heard of Satchel Paige, you've heard of Josh Gibson, you've heard of Oscar Charleston. Dahigo is just kind of, he doesn't have that name recognition of those guys, but he's an A plus plus, best as we can tell. Next up is Travis Stonewall Jackson. So he split time between short and third. So he had a shorter career, just played 15 seasons, and a few of them were pretty short. Let's get his WAR. Never had a single 6 WAR season. Had five times though, if you count that 4.9. 44 WAR, 1,700 hits. Really good fielder. WAR loves his glove. Average bat, 101 or 102 OPS plus. 0 black ink. But his nickname was, Stonewall Jackson. Like he was a wall. He was a wall of stone, and you did not hit the ball past him. Let's take a look at his page, see what they have to say about him. Premier defensive shortstop who swung a productive bat. He was an average hitter, so that's fair. So, yeah, just like they're just pounding the table for his glove. He seems like a pretty similar player to Aparicio. Maybe a D, strong D, weak C. What do you think of Stonewall?
Yeah, that 40-something WAR is not, telling me he's a C.
Yeah.
I would say D.
Yeah, it feels about right. All right, next up we got Huey Jennings. So Huey, 42 WAR. I think he might have been a manager. Let me see. Was he a manager? Yeah, wow, he managed for a very long time. Managed the Tigers for 14 years after he retired. So when viewing Huey Jennings, keep in mind he was a manager for a long time. Won 3 pennants in a row for the Tigers. So a very good manager. Not quite a Hall of Fame manager on his own, but probably that tier just below. Kind of a Hall of Very Gooder type manager. And then when you look at his playing career, wow, he led the league in WAR 4 years in a row there in the 1890s. So kind of bounced around team to team. He played for BLN. What is BLN? I don't even know. I have to look it up. The Baltimore National League. So the NL Baltimore Orioles of the 1800s. So, all right, Baltimore, Louisville. Man, he played on a lot of defunct teams, didn't he? All right, so
yeah.
This guy, man, how many full seasons? He only had like 7 full seasons, but he was incredibly good. So, all right, so what we have here is a guy who's all peak, no fluff as a player, and a very good manager. So he kind of feels like a guy that's like, okay, we acknowledge he's not quite a Hall of Fame player, he's not quite a Hall of Fame manager, but altogether he's a Hall of Famer, which I can buy. I think there's room in the Hall for guys like him. Let's just look at his plaque.
C or B?
Let's look at his plaque real quick to see what they emphasize. Of Baltimore's famous old Orioles, he was one of the game's mighty mites, a star shortstop and co-pilot. Okay, so they basically said, yeah, he had 397. That's pretty amazing. All right, so he probably was, injury.
He managed 3 championships.
Yeah. So, wow, he had 400, and why'd they say he had 397? They must have, figured this out after he retired. So he hit 400 one year. Oh, man, this guy's so confusing. I'm not sure what to do with him. Let's go with C. You were thinking C would be about right, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can buy that. Certainly a very unique player.
Yeah, on his own, he's kind of like in that E range, as a player with his WAR, but you add those managerial, I think it bumps him up a couple levels.
Yeah, very fair. All right, next up we got Derek Jeter Jeets. Definitely an all-time great. He have almost 3,500 hits, 300 hitter. Just went out there every day, won 4, how many rings did he win? 5 rings for the Yankees. He was Mr. Yankee his whole career. Just popular, unhateable. He got 5 Gold Gloves. I will say this. I just want a word about his WAR. So he's at 71 WAR. WAR hated Derek Jeter's glove. This negative 253. That is unbelievably bad. So his O WAR is 96. So if you consider Jeter an average shortstop, he's 96 WAR. His glove was so bad it got him down into the low 70s. So I am not sure that I would count that against him that much. It's probably a bit overstated because he wasn't a terrible shortstop. I watched him, like, he wasn't booting plays or anything. He probably should have moved over to third base when the Yankees got A-Rod and, let A-Rod play short. He played third. But, this doesn't tarnish his legacy in any way. He's an obvious A-tier Hall of Famer to me. What do you think about Jeter?
Yeah, he's an A tier. I watched him. He's that guy. Not quite an S tier. He did things the right way. I'm not a big Yankees guy, but he's definitely an A tier.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, next up is Barry Larkin. So Larkin, certainly an excellent player. 71 WAR, 2,300 hits. Let's look at his WAR seasons. Yeah, got 5.9 plus 4 times. A good hitter, 295, 116 OPS plus. Won that ring for the Reds in 90, had the MVP in 95, 3 Gold Gloves, 9 Silver Sluggers. So he was like the best hitting shortstop 9 times, which is pretty impressive. I was a little surprised he got in on the first try because he didn't seem like an inner ring Hall of Famer or anything during his career. He's just kind of a very good player who was, fortunate enough to stay healthy and have a long career. But he feels pretty much like a C tier to me. What do you think of Larkin?
Yeah, he's in that weird period just before hitters became elite at shortstop. I mean, he retired, in the 90s, and right after he retired, we kind of ushered in the steroid era. C tier feels about right, but it should be noted that he was a pretty good hitting shortstop.
Yeah, I think.
And, we won that championship with Cincinnati in 1990. C tier, it feels right, but it should take into account how shortstops hit back then.
Yeah, and I think playing for the Reds, he was kind of invisible for a while. Like after 90 when he won the World Series, I don't think the Reds made the playoffs, but maybe once or twice throughout the rest of his career. And, he certainly had some excellent seasons. So, yeah, certainly a very average Hall of Famer. All right, next up we got Rabbit Maranville, not sure. So 44 WAR. I think he's another. So he was the Boston Braves shortstop in the teens and 20s. Let's see. 258, 82 OPS plus. Must have been a defensive wizard. Yeah, 130. So another no hit, good field shortstop. It's in good 5.4, but I didn't ever crack 6. So. Yeah, he's not let's look at his plaque. I'm pretty sure he was just considered like the best defensive shortstop of his era. Played more games at shortstop than any other NL player. All right, that's a little bit of a funny qualifier. So when he retired, he had the most at bats of any NL. So he had a really long career. Interesting, they don't really mention his defense at short. They just kind of talk about other stuff. Yeah, I don't know. He feels like an E tier to me. Like, I mean, I can buy him as being considered one of the premier defensive shortstops at throughout his career, but he doesn't really measure up very well to the other guys. What do you think of Rabbit?
I think in the era he was probably better, but I think again, shortstop weren't really that good of hitters. I mean, you had Ernie Banks, and then, just a dead period of shortstops. And then all of a sudden, in the 90s, shortstop started hitting, and we kind of have a short memory of that. But, yeah, E tier, maybe D, just accounting for the era and how shortstops hit back then.
Yeah, I feel like he's E tier. He's just very fringy. But I don't mind him in the Hall of Fame. He's not an F or anything, but he's just kind of like he's in the bottom 20% though for sure. All right, next up we got Pee Wee Reese, Harold Henry Reese, the Little Colonel, has a pained expression on his face. So Pee Wee got 68 WAR. Pee Wee did miss 3 key seasons in his mid 20s, so you can add 20 WAR to that total because he was hitting 6 WAR around then. So this guy's like a high 80s WAR guy. When Jackie Robinson joined the team, he went out and put his arm around Jackie to show support. That's worth at least 15 WAR in my opinion. So man, this guy was just yeah, A tier to me. Just man, he was so good. Just cracked six like 5 or 6 times, or close to it rather. Stole bases, had pretty good pop for a shortstop. Was over 100 homers was pretty impressive back then. Yeah, to me, Pee Wee's a clear A tier Hall of Famer. What do you think of Pee Wee?
Yeah, I think he's an A tier. It's hard to account for the years that he missed, but those look like his prime years. So yeah, and even without those years missed, I mean, he's almost at a 70 WAR. So we're kind of talking like A tier, maybe close to S tier if he had actually played, but I'm comfortable with A.
Yeah, I mean, he only had 2,000, a little over 2,000 hits rather, and wasn't like a powerhouse, of a hitter or anything. He was a good shortstop, but not like otherworldly. So I don't think I can quite put him up in S, but obviously an A tier. All right, next up is Cal Ripken Jr. This guy just did it all. He was 6'4". He played shortstop like a ballerina. Hit 30 homers a couple times. He had 400 homers, 3,000 hits. A lot of people look at that 276 batting average, but like, who cares, man? This is like he's S tier, and there's not really any argument against it. He made the All-Star game almost every year of his career. 19 All-Star games, 2 MVPs, won the home run derby champ. Just man, this guy was just an unbelievable player, and to me, he's an obvious S tier. What do you think of Ripken?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you stack him up against guys that are contemporaries of his, like Barry Larkin, Ozzie Smith, guys that played during the same time that he did, and he's just, he did what they did, and he hit, and he
Yeah.
played every game at shortstop, which is a physically demanding position. I think that's an S tier.
Wow, he hit 10 WAR twice and led the league 3 times and cracked 6 or 7 times. Yeah, just unbelievable player. All right, next up is Phil Rizzuto, the man they called Scooter. So he's only 5'6", 42 WAR. Did miss 3 key seasons, and he had a 6 WAR season and then missed 3. So you could argue could kick him, maybe 15 WAR for missing those 3 seasons, which could get him up in the high 50s. He did lead the league in WAR that one year, but yeah, that was his only 6 WAR season. No power, only 1,500 hits. Again, he did miss time in the military. 93 OPS plus. He was a legendary radio announcer. I believe he was the Yankees announcer for a very long time. So, that's not nothing, but man, he was not a very good player I mean, good player obviously, but not by Hall of Fame standards. Man, he's D or E to me. What do you think of Scooter?
C or D. I mean, I really want to give him credit for the years he missed in the military. Seems like he had a really high WAR around the time that he went off to the military. So who knows what would have happened? But if you're in the 50s or maybe low 60s, you're looking at a C tier.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds like we both had a D tier in our ranges, so let's go ahead and compromise on D. I think he's a below average Hall of Famer, but I don't mind him being in when you include his radio career. All right, next up is Joe Sewell. So Sewell was the Yankees and Indians shortstop in the 20s and 30s. Well, he was only in the Yankees for 3 years. So the cool thing about Sewell is you could not strike this dude out. Look at his strikeouts. 114 career strikeouts. In 1930,
Wow.
he struck out 3 times. How many guys have struck out 4 times in a game? This guy struck out 3 times in a full season. Unbelievable.
That's
And
crazy.
I know. Yeah, so like, it wasn't a power hitter. But 109 OPS plus, just absolutely otherworldly contact hitter. A sad thing about him was he took over for shortstop when Ray Chapman got hit by a pitch in the head and died. So Ray Chapman's death kind of opened up playing time for Joe Sewell. So just kind of a little tragic footnote there at the beginning of his career. But we got here like Luis Ariz type guy. Just like he puts the ball in play, and he actually walked a lot. So man, he walked 100 times one year. Wow, geez, look at these walk to strikeout ratios. Unbelievable. Huh. Yeah, 55 WAR. So he had a shorter career. He didn't retired at 34. Man, I'm not really sure what to do about Sewell. He's definitely like he's not an E or an F or anything, but he doesn't have that many impressive career totals. But man, those strikeouts are so cool. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe a C tier for Sewell. What do you think about Joe Sewell?
That's exactly what I was thinking. That on base percentage and the batting average being over 300, pretty impressive. If you wanted to bang the table for B, just based on how little he struck out, it's impressive. I'd go with it.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a C to me. I don't know that I consider him like an above average Hall of Famer. I think he's just kind of in that middle of the pack swarm. All right, next up we got Ozzie Smith, just the wizard. He was the greatest defensive shortstop ever. He was a terrible hitter, 262, only hit 28 homers. I believe all but one of his homers came right-handed. He was a switch hitter, so which is pretty amazing if you consider that's like only facing lefties. So yeah, 87 OPS plus, 666 OPS. So yeah, terrible hitter. Stole almost 600 bags, so he was contributing on the base pass. Probably won like close to 20 Gold Gloves. Yeah, 13 Gold Gloves. Won the World Series, 15 All-Star games. Yeah, so this guy's just kind of like the GOAT defensive shortstop. 77 WAR, all of it defense is pretty darn impressive. Let's look at the D WAR real quick. So Ozzie Smith, 44 D WAR, second place, 36, Cal Ripken. So, man, that is very impressive. And shortstop being the most difficult position to play outside of catcher. The catcher's kind of its own thing. But Ozzie's a B tier to me. What do you think about Ozzie?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was at. I was at B tier. Not an A tier because he didn't hit enough. Really a C tier. He definitely way above average defensively. I'm good with B.
Yeah, very clear B tier to me. Ozzie Smith. All right. Up next is Joe Tinker. Tinker to Evers to Chance. We've already done Evers and Chance. Now it's Tinker's turn. 53 WAR. So those three guys got into the Hall of Fame because of a poem. So, all right. So he had one really good season in 1908. I think the Cubs won the World Series that year. But yeah, he only cracked 5 that one time. Did get 2 rings for the Cubs, which is pretty impressive. I think it was all right. WAR loved his glove. I think he was a really good, defense first guy. Yeah, 96 OPS plus, so not an awful hitter. And he was up over 100 several times. No power, obviously, playing in the dead ball era for the Cubs there in the aughts and early teens. Oh, he played for the Shy Feds, the Outlaw League, the Federal League in 14 and 15. All right. He's like a D tier to me. I mean, he was a really good defensive shortstop. He was really famous in his days. Oh, he died on his birthday. Yeah, he feels like a D to me. What do you think about Joe Tinker?
I mean, we got some guys like Rizzuto who are like lower. They're like 40 WAR guys that are in the D tier. He's in the 50s. I think that he's a C tier. I think he's an average Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like He only had one 5 WAR season. I don't know if I can quite put him up into C. Yeah, he's a borderliner. I don't know. All right, let's put him in C. I think we did say that we'd be a little kinder with shortstops because they're so important.
And he's memorable. You know, he's in the poem, Tinkers to Evers to Chance. You know, that gets you a little something, right?
Yeah, all right. We can give it to him. All right, next up we got Alan Trammell. So Trammell took a while to get in the Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2018, retiring in 1996. So he had to wait about 20 years. Got in on the VC. So 70 WAR. He was just the Tigers shortstop like forever for 20 years. 110 OPS plus, 2,300 hits, 180 homers. What do we got? 4 Gold Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers, 6 All-Star games. Remember, he was playing almost exclusively alongside Cal Ripken, so it's probably tough to make an All-Star game or win a Gold Glove or win a Silver Slugger around that guy. So, you know, throw him a little bone there. Let's see what he's doing. Yeah, he cracked 6 like 7 or 8 times. That's pretty impressive. What do you think of his glove here? Yeah, good, not great defensive shortstop. But he didn't really like... Why did it take him so long to get in the Hall of Fame? Why did he fall off the ballot? I mean, maybe WAR is what saved him. Wow, he hit 28 homers one year. That's pretty good for a shortstop. I want to hit 343. Finished second in the MVP in 87. I think somebody dumb won that year, like George Bell or something, like some like slugger who wasn't actually good if you look at his, you know, other stats. But all right, yeah, Trammell kind of feels like a C tier to me. What do you think about Trammell?
Yeah, I think he's a C tier. He's a little bit of a victim of his era. You know, playing at the same time as Ripken and Ozzie Smith and Barry Larkin, but you know, he didn't hit a bunch of dingers. He didn't steal a bunch of bases. He didn't have a crazy batting average. He was just good for a long time, but, you know, above average. But he just, you know, he wasn't on the level as some other guys.
Yeah, sounds about right. He feels very strongly C tier. All right, next up is Archie Vaughn. Archie Vaughn is like one of those guys that like WAR loved. So 78 WAR. Nobody ever heard of him. He made it on the Veterans Committee in 85 after, you know, retiring in 48. So he was the Pirates and Brooklyn Dodgers shortstop. Wow, look at all these phenomenal WAR seasons he had. Like, led it, you know, cracks.
Short career.
Yeah, short career. Only had about 12 full seasons, looks like. Yeah, I mean, he was an on-base machine. He cracked 6 WAR about 8 times. 9 All-Star games, 318 batting. Wow, 136 OPS plus. He didn't even rate as an especially good defensive shortstop. WAR just loved his bat. So yeah, this is one of those like guys.
Good hitter.
Yeah, like an excellent hitter and an average defensive shortstop, which is amazing because shortstop is, you know, such a tough position to play. So yeah, what do you think? B or C tier for Archie?
Yeah, I was thinking B. I was thinking B tier.
Yeah, he's like the sabermetrician's, you know, dream. He just kind of comes out of nowhere to, you know, actually be a lot better than anyone ever thought. You know, he walked a lot. He had a lot of WAR, and you know, back then people were just kind of looking at his batting average, which was good, but he didn't hit for power. You know, played the whole career in the live ball era. But yeah, he was a you know, under the radar, really good Hall of Famer. All right, next up is Bobby Wallace. Bobby Wallace is another guy that you don't hear much about, but he was actually pretty good. 76 WAR, 2,300 hits. Just had a very long career. So he was mostly the St. Louis Browns shortstop in the, you know, around the turn of the century, early aughts there. Played 25 years, you know, played from age 20 to 44. 105 OPS plus. Rated as an excellent defensive shortstop, over 100 fielding runs in his career. Kind of has a WAR title there in 1901. Yeah, you know, he's a very good player. But man, just like he has no name recognition. He just kind of flies under the radar. But he was quite good. I mean, that was an above average WAR. Well, what do you think about old Bobby Wallace?
It's kind of like right between a B and an A, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking a little more B because he has no star power. He didn't have any black ink or anything. Like those A tier guys were all like excellent hitters, and I think to be an A tier as a shortstop, you got to have the bat. Even Ozzie Smith, the greatest fielder of all, tops out at a B. So I think I got Bobby Wallace as a B. Feels about right.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we got John Ward. I believe he went by Monty Ward. Yeah, Monty. Okay. John Montgomery Ward. Ward would often hit right-handed versus lefty pitchers, but he batted. Okay, so he was like a sometimes switch hitter. Okay, whatever. All right. 34 WAR. Played exclusively in the 19th century. On Providence and played in the Players League. Man, he only had 4 WAR twice. Only hit 3 WAR 3 times. Stole a lot of bases. 540
Didn't
steals.
he pitch too?
Yeah. You're right. I believe he did pitch. Let me look up his pitching. Well, here's some good pitching seasons. 28 WAR as a pitcher. Wow, that's actually Shohei-esque. What was his ERA plus? 119. All right. Man, I got a two-way player here. So 62 total WAR. Yeah, I forgot to look up there for his total. So, okay. So we got like kind of a mini Shohei here of the 19th century. He was a good hitter, not great. Slightly below average, but he stole a lot of bases. I'll say he was an average hitter, and I'll say, what was his his ERA plus? 119. So he was a good pitcher who had, when he was 18, he led the majors in ERA. That's pretty cool. He had 47 wins. So, yeah, he had 3 or 4 really, really good pitching seasons. I don't know what to do about this guy. Like B tier, maybe? What do you think about Monty?
I will call him Mini Shohei. I think a B tier is about right.
Yeah. A little surprised he's not better known given he was so good at both. Never hear about him. All right, next up we got Willie Wells, a Negro Leaguer. So Willie Wells made it in 97. Not one of the first Negro Leaguers to make it in, but wow, 50 WAR as was he only a Negro Leaguer? I don't think he played in the majors. Yeah, he did not make the majors. Although he played, after Jackie Robinson made the majors, so he came pretty close. So wow, he has a lot of really impressive stats in the Negro Leagues. He had 6 WAR 4 times, which is like how many guys in the Negro Leagues have don't even have 6 WAR in their whole career? So very impressive statistics while in the Negro Leagues. Let's look at his plaque. Ooh, he had a lot to say about Willie. Combined superior batting skills, slick fielding, and speed to become an 8-time All-Star. Power hitting shortstop with great hands. Yeah, sounds like he was just a really good all-around, great at everything. Maybe like an A-Rod type player. He might have been as good as A-Rod. Looks like he was just great at everything. Yeah, pretty
Looks
sure.
A tier to me.
Yeah, pretty sure he's an A tier guy. All right, next up we got George Wright. So George Wright, born in 1847. So man, this guy was, So this was a pioneer type guy. 23 WAR, but they're playing 60 game schedules, so you can't really hand wave him based on WAR. So he got 6.4 WAR per 162 games, which is really good for what it's worth. And WAR back then, you're retconning a lot of stuff, so it's just kind of a guide. So how many? Yeah, he didn't play very many full seasons. Was he a pitcher too? Maybe. No, not really. Let's look at his plaque. I don't know much about George Wright.
I don't either.
Yeah, he was inducted in 37. Oh, he was inducted as a pioneer and executive, so not as a player. All right, yeah, yeah. Let's not worry about George Wright. He's not inducted as a player, so we will not rate him. Sorry, George. All right, last up we got Robin Yount. Old Robin Yount was he played center field. He played shortstop. 77 WAR. He's a 3,000 hit guy. 2 MVPs. He was on that 82 Brewers team that won the pennant. He was, wow, 10 WAR. Didn't realize he was that good. And, 10, a couple sevens, and then kind of didn't crack 6 outside of that. Not much of a power hit. Oh, he hit 29 once. Couldn't quite get to 30, but, 29's about as good. 115 OPS plus. Yeah, War didn't like his glove. Or wait, was he a shortstop? Yeah, okay, so he was a good shortstop, but when he moved to center field, War didn't like his glove anymore. All right. Yeah, he's certainly a very deserving Hall of Famer. Got his 3,000 hits. To me, he feels like a very average Hall of Famer. Just kind of like, I think he goes right in the middle. What do you think about Yount?
I've got him as like a B tier.
Yeah.
Like I think the 3,000 hits and he's got a good batting average and he's got a good on base percentage. Check those out. I mean,
yeah, and he stole some
it's
bags.
a really good year.
Yeah, hit a lot of doubles. He had a very long career too. Yeah, I can. All right, I can buy him as a B tier. I think he's a weak B though. Well, did we miss Honus Wagner? No. Yeah, I skipped Honus Wagner. All right, last but not least is Honus Wagner. Honus Wagner, wow, 131 WAR. Oh, well.
I think we know where that guy's going.
Yeah, jeez, look at all this. Just look at this guy, 3,400 hits. Wow. Wow, Honus. You rule, dude. You're an S tier Hall of Famer if there ever was one. Wow, all-time great. We love you, Honus. Well done. All right, that about wraps it up. Thanks for bearing with us. All right, what do you think? This is a very nice, man, look at this distribution. It's just looks like the normal curve. I think this means we did a good job. What do you think?
Good bell curve.
It's beautiful. Oh. Wow. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Did we screw anything up? Give us a like, comment, and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.